Today, we really want to look at what stops you getting faster as a older endurance runner. And to be honest, it's not primarily age, though age is a massive factor. I'm going to share with you what I feel throughout this video that will be slowing you down as much, if not more, than age itself. Problem for most runners is that they're training too hard. Now, I was recently talking to a number of runners on my age group advantage calls. If you're interested, we look at where you are now as a runner, where you want to go, and what the bottlenecks are. It's a free call, 40 minutes, and then I send over an audit for the steps you should take to train differently over the next 90 days. One of the things that I found was that most runners know what to do, but they're not actually doing it. They will tell themselves that they are training easy, but they're not. How do I know they're not? From an input-output point of view. If the inputs are right, then ultimately the outputs will be right. These runners are all talking to me about training really hard and not getting improving results and getting injured. None of us are elite runners. What most elites do that amateurs completely ignore is 80% of elite runners running is done at low intensities. But this is compounded even more with the factor that people will still compare pace. An elite will go out and do what they consider an easy run. But for some runners, they have to put their ego aside because a really easy run might mean walk run. It might mean, in some cases, walk. I'll give you a quick funny story. My wife and I, many years ago, were going to the theatre and we were late. My wife said, we got to run. Now, my wife doesn't really run, so she started running to get to the theatre. And then she looked over at me and I was walking. Now, this is not to demean my wife. My wife doesn't run. My point being, if you're looking at both efforts, I was putting in less effort, moving the same pace, but walking. And my wife was putting in a lot more effort and running. We were both going the same pace. So when runners look at elite runners and they look at their easy runs, they still compare pace. You should be really comparing what is the effort level for these elite runners when they're doing easy. And it is really easy, really conversational. So when you're looking at one of these marathon runners and they're doing 5-minute miles for a marathon, they're doing like 9-minute miles for their easy runs. If you apply that to a lot of amateur runners, that would be like doing an easy run at 11-12-minute miles. Most runners would not do their easy runs at that kind of low intensity. So it really does leave most runners in a Boob Cycle. They try and work as fast as they can, get fitter. And then for a little while, all is going well. Then they get injured or they plateau, get frustrated, have a rest period, and then start again. And this boom bust cycle goes on for so long. When I talk to a lot of runners, these cycles have been going on for years, but they don't even notice them because a goldfish doesn't know it's in water and it's become normalized. When you add in the fact that they're talking about their age, they're saying, I would get injured like this at my age doing speed workouts, where I would feel this tired at my age. And you're saying, yes, you can't change the candles on your birthday cake, but you could change the intensity distribution of your running. So are your easy runs really easy? And this is where you see runners, as when I speak to them in my group chats, is that difference in what they know and what they're doing, and a little smile comes across their face because they know what they should be doing. But as Tony Robbins said many years ago, you're careful you don't should over yourself, because we know the rule, we know what we should be doing, but emotionally, can we do it? Because it's, in effect, easy for the elite runner to run easy because they know that they can run at a certain pace. As non-elite runners, if you imagine it like a keyboard of choice, an elite runner's keyboard is really wide, so they can play a lot of notes, whereas an amateur runner's keyboard's smaller, and so the difference between really easy and tempo isn't so wide, so it's much easier to run too hard. So you have to be very disciplined. If you get onto Strava and your friend from next door is running harder and your run looks slow in comparison, you're going to be tempted to run harder. Why does this hit 50-plus-year-old runners so badly in this scenario? Instead of getting faster, they end up getting slower and blaming age. Well, you can't recover from your mistakes like you used to. Harder sessions take longer to bounce back from. Niggles turn into injuries and energy dips last longer. You don't need to do less, you need to train smarter. But what does training smarter actually look like? It's about getting your distribution of effort correct, making sure that your easy runs are easy, but also that, say, for example, you're doing a tempo run and there's a warm up in zone 1 and 2, and there'll be a warm down, maybe a zone 1 there, and in between there would be your tempo segment. There may even set tempo intervals, so you may have zone 3 with some recoveries maybe in zone 2, for example. What most runners will do is ignore the zone 1 and 2 warm up. They will do that at a kind of like higher zone 2, maybe even tempo anyway. They move into the tempo section and think, my goodness, I've got to move that up. So the tempo ends up being either a very hard tempo or nearly zone 4 hard session. And then when it comes to the recovery period, don't really take much notice of those either. And then they don't really do the warm down. So it becomes a tempo run. And then every run becomes really some variant of a tempo run. Whereas if you'd done that run and really respected the zone 1 and 2 sections of that run, there may have only been 20 minutes of tempo. The rest would have been zone 1 and 2. So there are opportunities to utilize your energy and save your energy and not waste your energy to maximize your returns from your training. This is what training smart is, to get more out of less. There is a way to do that tempo run. You can either do it the hard way, probably not get the adaptations from it anyway, which is the real thing. You're not even getting the changes you need, but you also increase your risk of injury and burnout. Or you can do that workout, get the adaptations for less effort overall, and show up for your next training run more fresh and less chance of injury. So that's really, in a nutshell, what I would call training smarter. It's not just a word or a smart thing to say. So ego running is the silent saboteur here. Ego running isn't about being big-headed. It is about having an argument with your body. And if you argue with your body, you will lose. You fight reality, you will lose. When you're like saying, I should be able to run this, and your body's saying no, it's like a bank account that your brain wants to withdraw £600 and you've got £2.50 in the bank. You will become overdrawn. You become overdrawn. That's where injuries, plateaus, burnout, frustration all live. So however much is in your bank account, you can only use what's in there. And the actual goal of training should be added to the bank account. You should be compounding. You should be adding, so that when you come to race day, you've got something to spend. If you're overdrawn when you start the race, we all know how that ends up. It's like a sunflower. Let's say you wanted to grow a beautiful sunflower. You go out into your garden. The training is when you're planting the sunflower. That's the idea. You're planting the seed quite literally. So you plant it all in. And then when you water it and look after it, it's the training. So that's how the sunflower would grow. But what if you took it to a running analogy, what most runners are doing is then going to dig up that sunflower every 2 days to see if it's grown. They have no process. They want to plant the sunflower and then they want next day the sunflower to be grown, which is what a child would do. And the reason a child would do that is they're not controlling their instant gratification, they're not controlling their egos. And as we get older, we like to think that we've completely bypassed and gone beyond that childlike state. But I can tell you, with lots of runners that I work with, most haven't. They know where they want to go, but they want to be there quicker. And that's where the problems begin. So you end up in this kind of race pace trap. So like I just alluded with the sunflower, you set a goal, you start doing every run somewhere near or about your race pace. If you got a top elite running a marathon in 5-minute miles per hour, or whatever that is in kilometers, and their easy run is at 9-minute, it's over half as slow again. How many amateur runners do that? Not many. Most are hugging the sideline of their race pace, and they are being guided by it. Either cognitively they are aware of that, and most of the races are at this mid sort of tempo kind of pace, or they're not aware of it, but they're just doing it anyway. I was talking to a runner the other day, and you couldn't have put a cigarette paper between his race pace and his training pace. He had good endurance, but he was getting constantly injured. He had a great engine, but the chassis was continually breaking. And this is where ego running really comes in. So what happens when you perfect pace your training? The perfect pacing method is what I share with my runners when they come on board for coaching. When you perfectly pace, you recover quicker, run more often, reduce injury risk, and get faster over time. And this shift changes everything. Now, how do you do this? The system is very simple. What I believe is your watch is misleading you, if not lying to you. It's not that the stats aren't always accurate, it's are they actually useful for you? Your heart rate will go up and down, particularly for older runners. It's a nice day outside today. The heart rate would be higher today. If you've just drunk coffee, it would be higher. You might need to bring it down for your easy run and struggle to do that, or get your heart rate high enough for your speed workout. And then in the speed workout, there's lag. And then if you go up a hill, there's lag. Pace, we do use the perfect pacing method, but we use it as a secondary metric. And what I mean by that is we use objective data first. So we used perceived effort first. So when you're doing your easy run, is it conversational? Can you talk? Can you count? With the runners that I coach, we do a threshold benchmark run, and then we look at what their threshold paces are. They can use heart rate if they're really attached to it, but we prefer to use pace. Because if you imagine a car, you know how hard the engine's working from the subjective data, and you also know how fast the car is moving. If you're doing, say, a zone 2 run, you know subjectively how you feel, but then you can check in with your watch. And like most runners, if you had your pace zones for a zone 2, for example, you're probably running at the top of that zone 2 from a pace perspective. You can then make the decision as well, why not drop it down to the middle of my pace? I'm already conversational, but I can bring it down even more, get all the benefits of the run for less effort. That is more training smart. The only thing stopping you there is your ego and what it looks like on Strava. From a training perspective, your body doesn't care about Strava. It cares about stimulation, and stimulation is embarrassing your body into change. But if you try and embarrass it too much, it will break. So what does this mean to be an evergreen endurance runner? You train easy enough to recover. You run fast enough to adapt. And you learn the difference between training and racing. So when I first start working with runners, it's like, you've got to know the rules before you can break the rules. So initially, it's really a case of pushing them really hard either way. When the easy runs, I really want the easy runs to be easy. The speed workouts, as I said earlier, I want them to be wrapped up in zone 1 and 2, and the runners actually acknowledging those other paces within that workout, so they get the dosage right. And then we move them away from the race pace trap and educate them to understand the difference between training, which is building up capacity, and racing, which is showing what you've got. If you've watched the whole video, you probably know most of what I'm saying. It's much harder to do. particularly as an older runner, because you can so often be attached on what you used to do. And that can become something that holds you back, that it can hold you back constantly, consciously or subconsciously trying to recover that. Now, the irony is if you adapt your training to become an evergreen endurance runner, then if you don't recover all of that, ironically, you probably could recover a lot more than you might at this point in your running think that you could. As I said right at the beginning of the video, what's holding you back? Age is a reality. I get comments, I'm 80, I'm 70. I'm not saying age isn't a reality. But what I see in most runners is wherever they're at, 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, the age you are, you can either work against that or you can work for it. And I see a lot of runners working against it, which is really what I've outlined in this video. And that's what's slowing them down. If they acknowledge most of what's in this video, they would get faster from where they are now. Does that mean they're as fast as they were at 20 or 30? Would be very dependent on what type of runner they were, but they could be definitely faster than they are now. If you found this video useful, you want to dig deeper into your situation, then I would definitely look at our age group advantage call. That's a free call. It's 30 plus minutes. We go through where you are now as a runner, where you want to go, what the bottlenecks are, which are going to be a lot of those sort of things we've discussed in this video, and then what you need to do differently. And I will then send you a detailed audit of everything that you need to do differently over the next 90 days to start improving your running. Now, my evil plan is, of course, a certain amount of runners are so impressed that they come on to the Evergreen Endurance Runner Accelerator Program. But that's by no means a hostage situation. And it's a really useful tool to have to reset your present training regime. Anyway, hope you've really enjoyed this video and I'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.